Jeremy Lin, are you following that story at all?
No idea. I know who he is, but I don't really know what's going on too much with him.
You know, watching him play, I mean, he can play. It's not something where he's just kind of hitting a hot streak here and there or something like that.
The rise and fall of Jeremy Lin. Jeremy Lin's rise to fame was unlike anything the NBA had ever seen. One moment, he was fighting to keep a roster spot, and the next, he was out dueling superstars and taking over Madison Square Garden. For a few magical weeks in 2012, he wasn't just a basketball player. He was a global sensation. But just as quickly as he rose, he fell. Injuries, team decisions, and the brutal reality of professional sports brought an end to Linsanity. But was it simply bad luck? Or was the NBA never ready for something like him? Well, let's get right into it. Jeremy Lin's basketball career is one of the most unpredictable and inspiring stories in sports history. Born in Torrance, California in 1988, he grew up in a Taiwanese-American household that valued education above all else. His parents, Gi-Ming and Shirley, had immigrated to the U.S. seeking better opportunities, and basketball was never part of the plan. But Lin was obsessed. He spent hours watching NBA games, analyzing every move, and practicing in his driveway long after the sun had set. His father, who had picked up a love for the game himself, encouraged him, often rebounding for him and teaching him what he knew. Despite his passion, Lin quickly realized he was playing a game that didn't seem built for someone like him. There were barely any Asian American players in the NBA, and stereotypes about athleticism and toughness followed him wherever he went. But none of that mattered when he was on the court. By the time he got to Palo Alto High School, he had developed into a quick, crafty guard with a high school basketball IQ. He wasn't just good, he was dominant. As a senior, Lin led Palo Alto to a stunning 32-1 record and a state championship, taking down a heavily favored Mater Dei team stacked with Division I recruits. He was the best player on the floor, controlling the game with his passing, shooting, and defense. But even after that, college scouts barely noticed. While less accomplished players received full scholarships to powerhouse programs, Lin got nothing. No Pac-12 offers, no major conference interests. Coaches didn't come out and say it, but the message was clear. An Asian American point guard wasn't what they were looking for. Despite leading his high school team to a state championship and proving himself against elite competition, top programs passed on him. He didn't get a single Division I scholarship offer. Stanford, right in his backyard, showed some interest but never made an offer. UCLA, Cal, and the rest of the Pac-12 barely acknowledged him. It didn't matter how skilled he didn't fit the mold of what scouts were looking for. With no scholarships on the table, Lin chose Harvard, a school known for academics, not producing NBA players. Harvard and the road less traveled. At Harvard, he wasted no time proving that coaches had made a mistake overlooking him. He wasn't just good, he was one of the best players in Ivy League history. By his junior and senior year, he was stuffing stat sheets, averaging nearly 17 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists per game. He outplayed top-ranked UConn in 2009, dropping 30 points and catching the attention of NBA scouts. He was fast, smart, and could break down defenses with ease. But even with his numbers, the same doubts followed him. Even fans mocked him. He was called sweet and sour pork on the road. Some analysts dismissed his game, questioning whether his athleticism would translate to the NBA. And when the 2010 NBA draft came around, 60 names were called, and Lin wasn't one of them. Once again, the message was clear. He wasn't what teams were looking for. Going undrafted was a gut punch, but Jeremy Lin wasn't ready to give up. Struggles and rejections in the NBA. With time, he got an opportunity with the Golden State Warriors in 2010, signing a partially guaranteed deal, a contract that meant he wasn't a priority. He barely played as a rookie, spending most of his time bouncing between the Warriors bench and the G League. When he did get minutes, he was nervous, trying too hard to impress in the limited time he had. The franchise had no long-term plans for him, and after just one season, they cut him. The Houston Rockets picked him up, but he didn't even last through training camp. He was on the team for 12 days before they let him go. Twice in the span of a few weeks, Lin was waived, unemployed, and running out of options. At this point, most players call it quits. The NBA doesn't have patience for fringe players, and Lin was dangerously close to fading into obscurity. He crashed on his brother's couch, uncertain if he would ever get another shot. Then, the New York Knicks took a chance on him. They signed him as an afterthought, a body to fill the roster. He was the fourth-string point guard, buried behind more established names. Most of the time, he sat in street clothes, not even active for games. He knew his days were numbered. If the Knicks needed to make a roster move, he'd be the first to go. He was running out of time, and he knew it. By February 2012, Jeremy Lin was days away from being cut. He had barely played, and the Knicks saw him as nothing more than a temporary roster filler. But the team was struggling. Injuries had sidelined key players, and the season was slipping away. Out of desperation, head coach Mike D'Antoni gave Lin a shot. It wasn't a planned move. It was a last resort. What happened next was something no one saw coming. The birth of Linsanity. On February 4th, Lin was thrown into a game against the New Jersey Nets. In 36 minutes, he dropped 25 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds, leading the Knicks to a much-needed win. The crowd erupted. His teammates mobbed him, and suddenly, the Knicks had new energy. But it wasn't just a one-game fluke. Lin followed up with 28 points against Utah, then 23 points and 10 assists against Washington. The legend was building. Then came the game that changed everything. February 10th, against the Lakers. The Knicks had no chance beating a team led by Kobe Bryant, but Lin had other plans. Under the bright lights of Madison Square Garden, he torched the Lakers for 38 points. Kobe had no answer for him. The world took notice. 2 nights later in Toronto, he hit a game-winning 3 at the buzzer, solidifying himself as a phenomenon. Lin became a global icon overnight, breaking barriers and proving that basketball didn't belong to just one type of player. But in the NBA, staying on top is harder than getting there. The league was about to adjust, and Lin's magic wasn't going to last forever. The fall begins. Yes, Lin's game was magical, but it never lasted. As teams started paying closer attention, defenses adjusted. Opponents trapped him on pick and rolls, cut off his driving lanes, and forced him into tougher spots. At the same time, the heavy minutes and physical play took a toll. By March, Lin's body started breaking down, and a torn meniscus ended his season early. Just like that, the fairy tale was over. The Knicks had a decision to make. Lin was a restricted free agent, and fans expected New York to keep their star. But in a shocking twist, they didn't match Houston's 3-year, $25 million offer. Many analysts, including Marcellus Wiley, agreed that this was a mistake.
No doubt, no question, this guy is going to be somebody you want to make sure is on your payroll. They're making a bad decision on and off the court.
I don't feel.
But Dolan
just dropped some knowledge on me.
Dolan is used to doing these things.
Some speculated it was a financial decision. Others believed Carmelo Anthony wasn't thrilled about Lin's sudden stardom. Either way, the Knicks let him walk, and just months after becoming the face of the team, Lin was gone. In Houston, the magic never quite returned. He was solid, averaging 13.4 points and 6.1 assists in his first season, but he wasn't the superstar fans had hoped for. The Rockets brought in James Harden, and Lin was no longer the focal point. His minutes dropped, and after 2 seasons, Houston traded him to the Lakers. From that point on, he became a journeyman, bouncing between Charlotte, Brooklyn, Atlanta, and Toronto. He had moments of brilliance, like a 35-point game with the Hornets, but he was never the same player. Injuries piled up and his role shrank. In 2019, Lin was barely holding on to an NBA roster spot. Even winning an NBA championship with the Raptors felt bittersweet. He hardly played the playoffs. The dream wasn't completely over, but it was slipping away fast. The NBA exit. By the end of 2019, the Toronto Raptors had made history, winning their first ever title, and Lin was on the roster. But the reality was far from glamorous. He played just 27 games for the team after being signed mid-season, and when the playoffs arrived, he was barely a factor. He logged a total of 51 seconds in the finals. The confetti fell, Lin held the trophy, but deep down he knew this wasn't how he had imagined his NBA journey ending. That summer, Lin gave an emotional speech at a church event in Taiwan. Fighting back tears, he admitted that he felt like the NBA had given up on him. He had worked tirelessly to prove himself, yet no team was willing to take a chance on him.
In English, there's a saying, and it says, once you hit rock bottom, the only way is up. But rock bottom just seems to keep getting more and more rock bottom for me.
It was a rare moment of vulnerability from an athlete who had spent years trying to block out the doubts and criticisms. With no NBA offers, Lin looked overseas. He signed with the Beijing Ducks and the Chinese Basketball Association and immediately reminded everyone that he could still play. In his first season, he averaged 22.3 points, 5.6 assists, and 5.7 rebounds per game. He became a fan favorite in China, where his impact extended beyond the court. But even as he thrived, he never stopped believing he could make an NBA return. In 2021, he came back to the U.S. and joined the G League's Santa Cruz Warriors. He played well, averaging 19.8 points per game, but no NBA team called. His comeback attempt had failed. He could have walked away, but he wasn't done with basketball. His next chapter would be about more than just the game. Lin after Linsanity. Instead of walking away from the game, he took his talents to Taiwan, signing with the New Taipei Kings in the P-League in 2022. Even in his mid-30s, he remained a key player, averaging solid numbers and bringing leadership to the young team. But at this stage, he was now playing for the love of the game, reconnecting with his roots and inspiring the next generation of Asian basketball players. Beyond basketball, he has been vocal about issues that extend far beyond the court. In recent years, he has become a strong advocate against anti-Asian hate, using his platform to raise awareness about the rise in attacks against the Asian community. He has spoken out publicly, donated to organizations fighting racism, and even launched initiatives to support underprivileged youth. His career may have taken him around the world, but his impact has always been bigger than basketball. At this stage in his life, Lin has embraced his legacy. He knows he was never supposed to make it to the NBA, let alone become a global icon. But he did. He changed the conversation about Asian American athletes, broke barriers, and proved that talent and hard work can shatter even the strongest stereotypes. Linsanity may have been a moment in NBA history, but its impact is still felt today. What do you think about Jeremy Lin's incredible journey? Do you believe he could have had a longer NBA career, or was Linsanity always destined to be short-lived? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for more amazing videos like this.